Hey there, this is Christina Marassi coming to you live from the Big Island in Hawaii. And I'm doing Facebook Live today on seriously my favorite topic at the moment for women in business on how to heal their inner masculine. Now, there is a lot to share about this, and it's something that feels so up in the moment because these are turbulent times of what's happening around us, and we see lots of different versions of the masculine outside of us, and of course we live in a patriarchal culture. But there's a place where we want to take responsibility and start to look inward to see what do we need to heal in our own inner masculine. And I see Leah Rose Farmer is here. She gave me a heart. Thank you, sister. Great to have you. Leah Rose is one of my Pleasure CEO priestesses in a 6-month program, and we get to go deep into all these topics. And Amuna Malinovitz is here. Awesome. She's also in the program with us. And Star Ladin, welcome, ladies. I'm so glad you're here for this juicy topic. So I have created this body of work called Pleasure CEO, and it's all about bringing your feminine power into business because, newsflash, we're women. We're not men. And business is so inherently based on masculine values, and we're all trying to play the game like men, but we don't have the same anatomy. It's kind of like trying to use the wrong fuel in your car. And so there's a place where we need to start to own more of our feminine power in business and understand what that even looks like, because it looks so different than traditional business. But in that process, I talk a lot about the feminine operating system and how, every one of us humans kind of had the patriarchal operating system automatically installed into our hard drives. And we don't even understand how much this patriarchy impacts us. We're like fish swimming in water. We have no idea how much we're being impacted by the patriarchy. And so really, we need to find a way to unplug the patriarchal operating system and instead kickstart the feminine operating system. But that doesn't mean that we're here to bash men, that we're letting go of the masculine. There's just a whole new way that we're going to utilize it in business. Luann is here and she says, hello, welcome, welcome. Samuel from India, welcome. So glad to have you. So we're talking about a juicy topic today of how to heal our inner masculine. So let's talk about this for a second. So first of all of us humans all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. Both men and women have both sides, right? And so the ideal is that they are healthy and empowered versions of both sides, and they find a way to work together in divine union, if you will. But instead, in our patriarchal culture based on masculine values, and not even the good masculine values, by the way, it's kind of like the lower form of masculine, of like competition and aggression and like, success at any cost and bottom line only. And really, those are the lower forms of the masculine, because the higher forms of the masculine are completely different. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. I want to really lay in the different archetypal energies of the masculine and the feminine. And I also want to share a very humbling story around me healing my own inner masculine. And I also want to share with you what the masculine and feminine look like in divine union in the feminine operating system in business as a Pleasure CEO. Does that sound interesting? And if anyone else wants to chime in and say hello, please do. I am gearing up. I'm doing a 3-day event coming up soon, November 30th, scratch that, November 30th through December 2nd, and it's happening in Northern California in wine country in Sonoma, where all of the horrible wildfires happened recently. So it feels like an interesting chain of events of why the event is happening there, and so I feel like we women get to be invited into that area to sort of flood the scorched land with our pleasure. So I'm really looking forward to that. So it's a 3-day retreat where we're going to come together as a sisterhood to really open source what is the feminine operating system in business, because it looks so different. I don't have it all figured out, and no one woman has this all figured out. So I want to create a space where we come together as a sisterhood to open source it and figuring it out as a collective, if that sounds good. Leah Rose says, don't miss Christina's 3-day live event, Pleasure CEO. Seriously. Leah Rose told me she came to the last one in May that it was worth 3 times what she'd paid for it. So, Shazam. So I'd love to invite you. You can find out more details. There are early bird tickets still available at pleasureceolive.com. There's some amazing women coming already, and we'd love to have you. I really want to sound the call. So if you feel like this would speak to someone else, please feel free to spread the word. Okay, so let's dive back into our topic. So business based on masculine values. I want to talk for a minute. What does it look like? I talk a lot about going into man mode in business as women. And so what that often looks like is like we get really stressed out and we've got our to-do list is a mile long and we just got to like get things done and we push through and we hustle and we grind and we make that call and we push ourselves and we like sort of use our willpower to push. For me, that's what man mode looks like in business. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that per se. It's just not the way we're actually built. Because I don't know about you, but that's a way of like trying to push a car up the hill. And if we use our feminine operating system in business instead, we get to get in the car and drive it up the hill because we're using the right fuel of how our feminine operating system works rather than trying to do business like men. So does that make sense of what man mode looks like in business? So there's a way where instead our business can be totally filled with flow and pleasure and turn on. And we can bring clients to us. We allow them to come in rather than making it happen and going to get it. We attract. We get into the mystery and bring the divine into our business. Like, I know some of this sounds so airy-fairy, but here's the thing. My clients are having real-world results by stepping into their feminine operating system of, like, working less and filling their live events so much easier, like, not doing any work. So, I don't know. Is that appealing to you? It's definitely appealing to me. I want to work less and make more. And I keep hearing it over and over again from people who were at the live event in May and then the women who have joined me for the 6-month program. So this is what's possible when we use our feminine operating system in business. Okay, so now let's go deeper into healing our inner masculine. This is important. Okay, so first up, let's get a baseline of what we're talking about of the archetypal energies of feminine and masculine, okay? So the archetypal masculine energy is all about direction and strategy and making things happen and courageousness and form and being of service and getting things done and being in action. It's very much a doing energy, right? And so the archetypal feminine energy is very different. It's much more about a beingness, about beauty and radiance and sort of turning like Swifty, like a kind of loop-de-loos, feeling emotions and being in that place of listening and magnetism and just enjoying things and letting whatever you need come to you. So these are archetypal masculine and feminine, right? Okay, and you can think about it, the yin and yang symbol, right? Like we've all seen that. There's the black side of the yang and the white side of the yang, but even within the black and the white side of the yang, there's a little bit of each other one, right? Within the black, there's a dot of the white. Within the white, there's a black of the dot. So a dot of the black. And so we all really want to find a way to bring in the divine union between this inner masculine and inner feminine within ourselves, right? Now, another way to look at it is an analogy of a vase with flowers. So the vase is the masculine. It's a structure. It's a container. And then the flowers are the feminine. It's beauty and life and radiance. And together, they create more art into the world, right? But if you imagine the vase without the flowers, say that's the masculine, it's just an empty container. It doesn't really have much value. But then if you think of the flowers without a vase, well, they're beautiful, but they're lying on the counter. They're not really displayed for all the world to see. So it's when you bring the vase as the masculine container with the beauty of the flowery feminine that together it becomes exalted, right? So another, Kristen's here, Thompson, loving the content, and also you look so lovely per usual. Mwah. Thank you, honey. I miss you. Thank you so much for that sweetness. I appreciate it. Okay, so then let's talk about, another analogy I really like is a river with riverbanks. Okay, so the riverbanks are the masculine and the river is the feminine. But if you think of the riverbanks without the river, it's just dry earth, right? But if you think of the river without the banks, then it's just this wild, crazy water that just sort of splays out and doesn't really go anywhere or do anything. So we really want to work together with the two. We want to be the wild, flowing river that just turns and just like is so full of life. But then we want a little bit of the masculine structure to come in so that it creates a direction for us to move in, right? Okay, so all that being said, I wanted a baseline of what the masculine and feminine look like archetypally, and then I want to talk about how they work together in business in the feminine operating system. And then I'm first going to start about talking about my humbling story about healing the inner masculine, though. Okay, so here's the thing. As I said earlier, all women and all men each have an inner feminine and an inner masculine. So God bless all us women, we're really working on embracing our feminine side, which is fantastic because it goes against everything that the patriarchal system venerates, right? So we're really bucking up against like millenniums of patriarchy to even unleash and claim our feminine power, which is wonderful. But there comes a point where you realize, like, how's my inner masculine doing, I wonder? And what you can start to pay attention to is, what are the versions of the masculine going on in your life? I don't know about you, but I often, as a woman, have felt some frustration towards men for various reasons. Like, certainly with this whole Me Too movement that's been happening, we can see how awful men have been towards women in the workplace, really, in general, right? So that's not a very flattering version of the masculine. And then we can see all the war that's happening in our world, right? Not a very flattering version of the masculine. And then, you know, when we're in romantic relationships, sometimes it can be a little frustrating as a woman in being in a relationship with a man. So we can start to see what the masculine looks like in our outside world. But here's where the humbling piece comes in. So a few years ago, I don't know if I made this up or not, but I did a journaling conversation with my inner feminine and my inner masculine. Now, maybe you've heard about this. You can do active imagination. It's a journaling exercise where it's like you're having a dialogue with parts of yourself. So I did that between my masculine and feminine. Here's what was very interesting. So I am a strong, independent, powerful woman, right? So I might have thought that my inner masculine was quite healthy, maybe even overriding my feminine most of the time, right? Oh, no, not so. So when I tuned into my inner masculine and had this conversation, it was very interesting. My inner masculine was very wounded. He was a bit of a basket case. There was, I felt a crack in his foundation. He wasn't doing well. He was kind of young and wounded and acting out and a little bit useless and just kind of cranky and not the version of masculine that I would like. But here was the humbling moment. God bless him for being my teacher. But what I saw is the archetypal imprint of my inner masculine matched exactly the feeling tone of my ex-husband. And that was like such a moment for me to sit with. Are you kidding me? The frustrations that I had with that beautiful man, God bless him, but he was a reflection of my inner masculine. What? I really had to have a come to Jesus moment to be like, oh shit, I guess I gotta take some more responsibility for that relationship. And so that was the beginning of my fascination with, well, how do I heal my inner masculine then? How do I grow up my inner masculine? How do I make him be the man that I want to have in my world, but also want to represent and to use in my business too? I got some hearts. Awesome. Yeah, if anyone's having any ahas, if you want to add into this content, please chime in or share where you are. This is definitely a community conversation around this. So, humbling. Very, very humbling to see that my inner masculine wasn't healthy. And so I still don't even really know, where did my strength come from when I have used it, right? Like, best I've come up with is maybe I ran it through my feminine. I don't even exactly know. But it's been years, and I have had this intention of healing my inner masculine and not exactly entirely sure how to do it. So, cut to, here I am doing this work around Pleasure CEO and really starting to see, how do the feminine and the masculine work together in business in an updated, more exalted way within the feminine operating system. Because, of course, we're never getting rid of the masculine, but they're going to work together differently, right? And I'm, working in a 6-month program with these amazing women where we're doing this Pleasure CEO work, and we're going deep. It's called Pleasure CEO Priestesses, and I'll be sharing more about that at my live event that's coming up soon. You can see details about that 3-day retreat at pleasureceolive.com, and there's a link around here somewhere. So this body of work is very new. I am birthing it in real time. I do not have it all figured out. I'm calling in the women where we get to figure this out together, right? So I've been seeing in my coaching with my clients places where their inner masculine needs help. Like, for instance, I have a client where she was having trouble with her teenage son. She was having trouble with men that she worked with. She was having trouble with her father. She was having trouble with other men in her life. And it was just like, man trouble, man trouble, man trouble, man trouble. And so we looked at it and we could feel into her system and see where her masculine wasn't so well. And I was like, girl, we're putting you in some masculine rehab, because we have got to heal what's going on inside of you with your inner masculine, so that now better versions of the masculine can be reflected at you from the outside, right? So this is deep, because if we have been wounded by the masculine in our lives, and we can clearly see that just about 99.9% of women have, then that usually means that we might have disowned our own inner masculine. And this is complicated. We need to heal that, though. And I posit that if we women work on healing our own inner masculine, that's where we're going to start to change the world. Because if our inner masculine is healed, then that will be reflected back at us from the outside world. And then, oh, Leah Rose says I'm breaking up a little bit. Can you guys hear me or no? I got a heart. I don't know who's hearting me, but thank you. I'll just move my hips. Is it any better? Can you hear me? I got some hearts, so I'll continue. So, I believe that it's our job as women to heal our inner masculine, and I would like to believe that's going to start to heal some of the things in the world that we would like to change. What do you think about that? Aliyah Rose says you can hear me. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Kristen, too. All right. So, all that being said, what does it look like the way the masculine and feminine work together in business? So 2 years ago, I downloaded this Pleasure CEO work, and I saw it as like a 5-step process. And in the last Facebook Live I did last week, I shared that whole 5-step process with you. But the kicker is right at the end, and I'm just going to take you right to the best part, in my opinion. So when I was downloading this body of work of what is the feminine operating system, I really was getting it in real time, by the way. Building the plane as you fly it, as it's been said. I think that's a Lisa Sasevich term. When I got to the end, I thought, okay, so we're not going to get rid of the masculine, but what does it look like in this updated version? And it was like, oh, something so beautiful came in that really, 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 really touched me. So what I saw, because I was like, okay, so how does it work? Does it start with the masculine? Does it start with the feminine? Because, of course, in business, we always start with the masculine. It's like, what's your plan? What's your 90-day plan? Do you have your strategy? Where's your budget? Where's your business plan? I mean, it's like all the structure. It's all the vase, right? We talked about in the riverbanks that we start with in business. But what I saw is that is a wrong, way ass backwards. So this is what I saw, is in an ideal world, as women in our feminine operating system, we start with the feminine. Because guess what? The feminine is the mystery. She is the womb from which all things come. And so if we hang out and we listen in the mystery, at some point a spark of desire rises up from our soul. And I talked about this in the last video, that I see desire as a spark that rises up from our soul and sends us in the direction of a nutrient that we need. And it can be the best tool in business. We think of desire as somewhat frivolous, but it's actually a business strategy, yo. Like, I ain't lying. But it's got to be the place where you start, because you want to be guided by your soul. You don't want to come up with these ideas from your human mind. You want to figure out how it starts from the inside. And you want to be in that place of the feminine mystery and listen and be and allow like creativity to come forward with a spark of desire in its natural state. But then here's an important piece. We need to first spend time being in the mystery, and we need to listen for the desire, but then we need to fan the flames of the desire so that it becomes like a fuel source of some kind. And we can do that through our turn on, we can do that through our pleasure, we can do that through imagining what the desire will look like when it comes in. We can like really get the specificity of it and kind of just bring it to life. And when that happens, that desire starts pulsating and it's visceral. And then guess what happens? From that feminine place of like a pulsating desire, the masculine wakes up. And your inner masculine is then like, ooh, that's a pretty hot desire from my inner feminine. Oh my God, I want her to have it. The masculine is all about being of service. He wants to give you what you want. Women, he wants to come in with a plan and a strategy to make it so. So when you fan the flames of your desire enough, the masculine is woken up, comes in and is like, oh, my woman wants something. I want to be of service. How can I come up with a plan and a strategy to make it so? And then the masculine comes in with the form to the mystery and the desire, right? And the form kind of, and the structure comes in. And now you start to create the business strategy, sort of, let's see, vision that you have to move forward, and you see where they work together. Kristen says, I love how you're blending the feminine and masculine together. I hear a lot of women talk about how we need to not be masculine, right? But really we need to be both. Yes, I love the way you explain it. Thank you, Kristen Thompson. Oh, thanks. Kristen's an amazing colleague who helps you create your talks from the stage and rock your presence on stage. So definitely check her out. She's amazing. Okay, here's one more important piece to this puzzle, though. I want you women, along with me, to see where the whole chain of command is breaking the fuck down in this process. So, inevitably, you've been in a relationship where you can feel your inner feminine being like, the masculine's not doing it right. I'm not getting what I want. I'm just cranky. And you like that bitchy, kind of nagging feminine of like, you're not doing enough, right? We've all felt that place. But here's what's happening. The masculine wants to give us what we want, wants to be of service, wants to like create a way for it to happen. But he gets inspired and fed by our desire. Look at all those hearts. I love it. So the chain of command breaks down because we women don't spend enough time in the mystery and in the listening and in the cultivating of that spark of desire that kickstarts the whole process. And instead, we don't do a damn thing and we jump right to the masculine form and the riverbanks and the vase and we're like, let's come up with a strategy. And then there's nothing to fill it. There's no flowers. There's no river within that strategy. And then, of course, it doesn't feel good. And we're exhausted and we're drained and we're like, business is hard. It's all on my shoulders. It's just like so much hustle and grind. So do you get how important this piece is? Like, this is where the feminine is, where we have to learn to claim this first. Like, the feminine has got to get more unleashed. We need to, you can watch the 5 steps of the feminine operating system, but we need to open up that desire channel. We need to expand our sex power. We need to, like, learn our pleasure power and learn how to feel good. All of those things are so important. And I'm going to present the idea that if we women do that, it'll start to change and create a tipping point where the whole balance of power will start to shift. But it starts with us as women. So first, we women need to embrace our feminine power. And that being said, of course, I'm also here about my favorite topic of like how to heal our inner masculine. So, so exciting, because I can just really see, you know, you can see the women in business who are very much defaulting into their man mode, right? Like they kind of have that like, let's get things done. And they're like at the top of like the, you know, the pecking order of business. And they've got these big businesses and everything's going well, but they feel a little brittle, don't they? Like it's a little harsh. And, you know, they don't like they're having a good time. They can push it through. They can make things happen. God bless them. But I think they're using the wrong fuel. And I don't know about you, but I have so many colleagues with adrenal fatigue and on the verge of burnout. Kristen says, claim it in the feminine first, writer downer. Yes, that's a tweetable. So all that being said, I was saying that you can see women in business who are strong in their masculine, but they don't look like they're having a good time. And then you see the women in business who are, they're not really in business because they're so in their feminine, and they're not very effective. They're not really getting a lot of things done, right? So they're kind of like flowy and priestessy and just kind of like touchy-feely in the healer vibe. Meanwhile, I've been there. I've totally been that side, so I understand it very well. And neither one of those is right. Like, we really want to find a way to, first of all of us need to unplug this patriarchal operating system. And the tricky thing is, we have all internalized the patriarchy. We all have an inner patriarch inside us, giving us a hard time as our inner critic to do things in a particular way. There was a whole book about this called The Shadow King, and it's startling to realize how much we've internalized the inner patriarchy. So it's really important to kind of, step one in that feminine operating system was to break free from conditioning. Because you have to say no to like operating from what everyone has taught us and what everybody else thinks and, you know, that patriarchal operating system, because we need to start to go rogue and go inside to see what is our feminine operating system. And it's not that easy. I ain't gonna lie. Like, this is hard won for me. You know, like, if you know my story, I created a lot of success in business and definitely in man mode. Not the worst case of it, for sure. There was a lot of feminine within it, but I was exhausted. I was working constantly, and I had no personal life to speak of, and so I pulled the plug on my business 3.5 years ago. $500,000 business, by the way, because I knew something needed to change, and it's been an intense dismantling process over the last 3.5 years. You don't just jump right into the feminine operating system. Believe me, I wish you did, but you don't. There's a dismantling process that has to happen first. So I've gone through a dark night of the soul in order to get to the other side in the feminine operating system. So please, can I show you the easier way to do it so that you don't need to go through what I went through of a deep rupture, dark night of the soul process? And it's a process. You know, you really don't just snap your fingers and step into the feminine. So hang on, we need to block someone. Awesome, thank you. Okay, see, my masculine just handled that, right? Can you feel that energy? And that was just like a simple, didn't have to make a big deal of it, didn't have to like, I don't know, didn't have to get in the histrionics of the feminine either. It was like my masculine came forward, it was like, let's just handle that. And that's what we're all looking to get to, is how do we find the exalted forms of both the feminine and the masculine, and then see how they work together in business. So lastly, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in, or any ahas you want to share, that would be great. Lastly, I want to share, so how do you heal your inner masculine? So you could also try the journal dialoguing conversation that I mentioned. And basically I just sat in a meditative space. I tuned in to my feminine side and my masculine side. In many traditions, the feminine is on the left side and the masculine is on the right side. So I gave you lots of great content of what those archetypal energies are, so you can start to see how do those show up in your life. Like, how does the feminine show up in your life and within you, and how does the masculine show up in your life and within you? And then get out your journal and you write it like a dialogue. You could say feminine ... and then see, what does your feminine have to say? Or maybe she has something she wants to say to your masculine, and you let that come out by journaling. And then you take a moment and tune in and you listen for the masculine. How does he want to respond? And then have a conversation back and forth. I'll tell you what, it's super crazy fascinating. I've had my clients do this, and there's one story where a woman came to me and she's like, you know, my inner masculine is kind of like pissed at the feminine because he's like, she's not really pulling her weight. And we were on a group coaching call at the time, and everyone was like, yeah, I know that place. And I was like, whoa, hold up. That is not the norm. The feminine is never supposed to pull her weight. Ever. So it was so interesting to see, like, our conditioning to think that that's how it is. Like, we all need to pull our weight. And it's like, no, you don't. The masculine does the doing. But he needs to be fed and appreciated and lifted up and puffed up by the feminine. And that's where we drop the ball, ladies. And I understand why. It's because of our wounding and our crankiness. But we have to heal that shit so that we can actually be respectful and loving towards our men and lift them up, and within ourselves as well. So one way to heal your inner masculine is to do that journaling conversation. Another way is to just sort of like tune into your inner masculine and see how's he doing. You know, you could have a conversation just with your inner masculine and journal about that. You could also start to look at like, where are there versions of the masculine in the world that you respect? And start to like look for evidence of where the masculine is good, right? Because unfortunately we see a lot of where it isn't at the moment, but if we fixate on that, that's all we're going to see. So we want to look like, where do you see good versions of it? And then you kind of want to tune in, like, what does your inner masculine need to heal? What is his wound? You know, it's fascinating. When I tuned into my inner masculine, I did a great ritual on the equinox, which was just recently, right? Because that's a perfect time. It's all about like the balance between the masculine and feminine, the balance between the light and the dark. My inner masculine was still a basket case, like years later. To be honest, my feminine wasn't much better, which is startling with all the attention and workshops I have given and received around the feminine. Ooh, lots of hearts. Thank you. But we kind of know how to heal a feminine, right? Like the feminine wants body work and lusciousness and attention and loving care and being cherished, right? But I sat with a question. I'm like, how do you heal the inner masculine? Inner masculine doesn't want to like be all touchy-feely, you know, if I'm thinking archetypally, right? So I kind of tuned in and I thought, well, let's see, what would happen if the inner masculine got into battle, you know, and got wounded in battle? It's like, well, like his warriors would surround him and sort of like just give him the basics that he needed. So I kind of imagined my warrior was in the hospital, my inner masculine was in the hospital with his warrior brethren, and he was healing. But then I was like, I don't know if that feels right either. And then I got that, I'm like, oh, the inner masculine, I think you just send him out into the wild, into the desert on a vision quest. And it's kind of like, you're either going to sink or you're going to swim, dude. Like, are you going to just fall apart and die out in the wild? Or are you going to rise to the occasion and find your strength and come back to your power? So that's what I did. I sent my inner masculine out on a vision quest. I can't say if he's returned yet, although I do think he has, because I have, you know, I led a whole ritual for my Pleasure CEO Priestess clients, my 6-month program, around the inner masculine, and I could feel mine in the moment. He felt healthier, but I also felt that I felt him saying to me again, I need more appreciation. I feel like it's never enough. I don't feel like I'm making you happy. And we've all seen what this looks like in relationships, right? So I've been spending some time appreciating my inner masculine more for the things that he does do in my life. When I get things done in my business, when I take action, you know, when I create form around something, right? So it's amazing though too, when I appreciate my inner masculine, I feel him like puff up. I feel him completely get lifted up and filled up. And it's like, oh, I guess I need to do more of that. My bad. Sorry. So there's so many pieces to this puzzle of how we start to heal all of this. We're going to finish up soon, so if there's any questions or any ahas or comments, please chime in. I love, love, love this topic. And, you know, when I realized some of my clients needed some help around their inner masculine, I thought, let me do some research. Maybe there's some great stuff out there of how to do that. And so I Googled, and I Googled, and I Googled, and I Googled. There really wasn't much. There was a little bit, but there wasn't much. So I thought, all right, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to like get this out into the world. So this is the first time I'm sharing more about it publicly. So I'm curious, was this interesting to you? Did you learn anything? I'd love to hear, because it's definitely something I'm passionate about, because I'm in a place where I'm calling in love into my life. And I know that if I heal my inner masculine first, I will call in a very different caliber of man. So it's a win, 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 win a million times around, right? Like I heal my inner masculine, so my inner masculine and inner feminine can work together in my business. And then it also means that I will call in a higher caliber of man. And then it also means that hopefully the men out there in the world will start to rise up, because I'll learn how to be with the masculine better. And now I have this goal, like I want to leave every man better than when I found him. And I want to lift him up so that he remembers his masculine power. And I can't do that if I'm cranky or disappointed or my inner masculine isn't healed. So this is where we get to really grab the reins right now, my ladies. Oh, just got some comments. Kadoma says, I love this topic, so needed. Thank you. Tanika Mason says, absolutely loving this topic. Awesome. Thank you. Wendy G. Young Lightwalker says, yes, interesting and thought-provoking. Awesome. Okay. Does anyone want to set any intentions before we finish up of what you might do to be and understand and heal your inner masculine? Sometimes it's good to say it publicly because then you know you'll do it. Kadoma says, I feel resistance to praise my man. Oh my God. Oh, you're my masculine. What's that about? Okay, wait, say more. To praise your inner masculine or you're a man that you're in partnership with? I mean, basically I can answer the question anyway. So you probably need to talk to your inner feminine first. Tanika says, yes, let's set intentions. Yeah, bring it in. So you're going to want to talk to your inner feminine. Here's a couple of possibilities. I know for me, I have had a lot of places in my life where I was disappointed with the masculine. And so there's a lot of wounding, like of just, and crankiness. And so then I don't, okay, here's the funny thing. I am right near the chicken coop because I'm in Hawaii in the Big Island and the 7-acre farm. And the roosters go off at all different times. They haven't gone off once, but I mean, I'm right next to them. They're so loud. But they are now. So interesting. Thank you, rooster. So you're going to want to look at your feminine and see where her wounding is around the masculine. I know for me, I saw a lot of wounding and disappointment. So it was like, well, why am I going to trust you? Like, it's never worked out in the past. Oh, here's another big piece to share with you. Humbling. I had so much disappointment that I saw that I was like, fuck that. I'm going to create myself as a self-sustaining organism, so I won't even need a man. I'll take care of both sides. And then, of course, there's no room for partnership. Then the feminine's like doing it all by herself, and then she's cranky about doing it all by herself, and then she feels put upon. She's doing it all by herself. And so it's just a disaster. So I saw that I need to, I know, divine timing, rooster, indeed. I created myself as a self-sustaining organism like an amoeba, right? So I'm having to like break that down, heal the wounding and the disappointment so that I can make room for the feminine. This topic, I love it so much. We'll have to talk about it again because there's places where you will start to see that your feminine isn't making room for the masculine in your world at all because you're cranky and you don't think he's going to do it right. And so you're like, I'm just going to handle it. Can anyone relate to that? I've certainly had moments of it. And then there's no room for the masculine to actually rise to the occasion because we're taking up all the space. So again, another place, underlining, where we women can actually start to change this balance of power in the world. Does that answer it for you, Kadoma? So I would say, see where your feminine is, because if the feminine has a lot of charge buildup, as I say, of like crankiness, disappointment, wounding, you know, if someone has some horrible sexual assault in their background, they're not really going to want to lift up men. But here's the tricky thing. This is a whole other topic we'll go into another time. We are responsible to clear our own charge. And there's ways to do that. We'll do some of it at the 3-day live event coming up. I do that with my clients. It's another conversation, so I'll try and like talk about that another time because it's deep. But we need to find ways to move that energy so that we're not like speaking from charge to our inner masculine or our outer masculine. We need to be clearer. And when you have cleared out your charge and your own wounding, you will find it easier to then appreciate and lift up your masculine. It's a process. I wish it were easy. Like I said earlier, I wish we could just snap our fingers, but we can't. So that's why I want to keep creating spaces where we can do this as a sisterhood, right? Like, let's go into the masculine. Let's bring like physical expression into it. Let's clear those charges through emotions and expression and body and movement. Like, this is the stuff I love. So, and I can only do so much of it on Facebook Live, like I'm trying. But if you want more, please, please, please consider coming to the Pleasure CEO Live retreat. I shared about it earlier, but you can see more at pleasureceolive.com, November 30th through December 2nd in Sonoma, in Northern California. 10% of ticket sales are going to fire victims. And we really need to bring more feminine pleasure to that area for sure. And you can see some great testimonials on the website too. Like, see the results that are happening for my clients. To be honest, when I started this process of Pleasure CEO and the feminine business, I had no idea if it worked. I knew it was important. I knew it was the way I operated, so I was going to fight for it and be devoted to it no matter what, but I really didn't know if it was going to get business results. So I took major risks on so many levels. But I'm so glad that I did, because now that I did this live event last May, now that I have clients in a 6-month program with me, I am watching the changes. And it's glorious. The clients are working less, they're making more, they're having more fun, and they're having like much better sex in their partnerships as well, which is a really nice side benefit. So there's so much to it. So you can see more of the testimonials at pleasureceolive.com. Okay, any other words before we finish up? Thank you for those questions, because I'm glad I shared that piece about the self-sustaining organism. That has been really important. I've never had someone join. Fantastic. So, is that going to bring you on screen, Doma? That'd be cool. We'll see how that works. Any other words? Any other ahas? Any other questions before we finish up? I'm sending you some aloha from Hawaii on the Big Island in Kona. I felt like lusciousness was good for this video. Let's see, I don't see Kadoma. I don't know how else we would do that. All right, well, we might finish here. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Please continue this conversation. If you do some work with your inner masculine and you discover some things, let me know. I keep saying, I'm like, I don't have this all figured out. I love data from the field, big time. And I really think we have to open source this as a sisterhood of this feminine operating system in business. So anyway, I'm excited to hear what you learn. Come back and tell me. And if you want to go deeper, please join us for the Pleasure CEO Live Retreat. Also, just to say, you will see a juicy testimonial. I had people fly from England to Northern California, from Hawaii, from New York, and someone said from New York that her biggest hesitation to coming was, of course, the cost of flights, cost of hotel, cost of babysitters. She's 3 kids, and somehow her body told her she needed to be there, so she figured it out. And while she was at the event, guess what? The exact amount of what it cost for her to come to the event landed in her account without her doing a damn thing. Like, ease and grace. This is the feminine operating system. So in case any of you are nowhere near Northern California, please consider coming. Because like I said, I had people fly from England and Hawaii to Northern California. So there's no excuses. And the best way to find out if you're meant to be there is to really tune into your body. Actually, or have a journaling conversation. Talk to your feminine and your masculine. See if they want to come. And if they do, we'd love to have you. Early bird tickets are still happening for right now. And with that, we will sign out. Awesome. Jesse's here. Oh, Jesse, I'm just finishing up. Shoot. But I'm so glad to have you. Jesse Corin is an amazing version of an exalted masculine out in the world, an incredible coach, and a dear friend and colleague. So I'm glad to have you. We just talked a lot about it, though, so I will make sure to post it on the page if you want to check it out. So I'm sending lots of aloha and love from the Big Island of Hawaii, and we'll talk again soon and keep going into these topics of feminine operating system in business. How does it look different from traditional business, and how does it create sustainable, pleasurable success as a pleasure CEO? So sending you lots of love. Take care.